Welcome back to Sam's Fiction Hub. I'm your host, Sam, and I'm thrilled to have you join me for episode 2. Today, we're diving into chapters 3 and 4 of Echoes of 24, written under my pen name, Virgil Brooks. If you enjoy the suspense and intrigue of our first episode, you're in for even more excitement. When we left Captain Maya Locke at the end of chapter 2, she had uncovered cryptic letters pointing to something far bigger than herself, a mystery that could alter the course of an interstellar war. In chapters 3 and 4, the stakes are raised as Maya confronts the dangers of this desolate planet and the shadowy forces shaping her destiny. And, as promised, we've updated the narration for this episode. In addition to our narrator, Astra, each character now has their own distinct voice, bringing Maya's world to life in a whole new way. So settle in, grab your headphones, prepare to step deep into the mystery. Let's dive into Echoes of 24.
Chapter 3, Echoes of Altair. Maya's back pressed hard against the cold metal of the pedestal as she sat cross-legged on the floor, her breathing slow but deliberate. Her fingers tingled from their brief contact with the alien sheets, as if some residual energy now coursed through her bloodstream. The storm outside howled in the distance, faint but growing closer, a reminder of her limited time. She clenched her fists, grounding herself. Whatever these letters were, they weren't just data. They were something far more dangerous. The visions, those fragmented images, still clung to the edges of her consciousness, and Altair's name echoed in her head like a distant call she couldn't quite answer.
Remus, what's the status?
Maya asked, her voice diminished, steadying herself against the growing sense of dread.
Decryption of the first letter is complete,
Remus replied, his voice returning to its usual clinical tone.
I am now able to provide a partial translation of the encoded data. Would you like me to begin playback?
Maya hesitated, the memory of the images flashing through her mind. This wasn't just information. The sentiment personal, intimate in a way that frightened her. And yet, something in her needed to know. Whatever the letters held, they were meant for her.
Do it,
she ordered, her tone firm but edged with caution. There was a brief pause, a flicker of static, and then a deep, sonorous voice filled the small chamber. It wasn't like any language Maya had heard before, but the translation scrolled across her visor, revealing the message in an ancient, almost poetic cadence.
I am Altair, soldier of the infinite war. This is my record, my final attempt to break the cycle. If you are reading this, then you have already begun the journey. You, like me, are trapped in the endless wheel of time, bound to the same fate, the same struggle. This is my warning, my plea. Escape while you can, before the echoes consume you.
Maya's breath caught in her throat. She blinked at the translation, her mind racing to process the words. Escape? Trapped in time? None of it made sense, and yet, some deep part of her instinctively understood what Altair meant.
Remus, continue playback,
she said, her voice a whisper now. The voice of Altair continued, faint and solemn, carrying the heaviness of years, perhaps centuries.
You must know that the enemy, these Krylon, or whatever they may be called in your time, have mastered the manipulation of time itself. Each battle, each war, has played out before. We have fought and lost, again and again. I am, or was, a soldier like you. And I too believed that I could stop them. Yet, I was wrong.
The words struck Maya like a blow to the chest. The visions from before, the soldiers, the battles, they weren't just memories of another war. They were memories of the same war, fought countless times over in different iterations of time. Altair had lived through them, and now somehow, so had she.
Remus,
She said, her throat tight.
are you getting all of this?
Affirmative.
Remus responded, though his tone held an unusual weight.
It appears Altair's warning is connected to some form of temporal loop. I am cross-referencing understood theories on time manipulation, but the data remains inconclusive.
Of course it's inconclusive.
Maya muttered.
We're dealing with something beyond what we understand.
She stood, pacing the chamber, her mind running through the possibilities. Time loops, endless cycles of war. She caught wind of stories about time-bound anomalies, glitches in the universe that bent the fabric of space and time, but none of it had been proven. And yet here she was, listening to the words of a man who appeared to have experienced it firsthand.
I tried to end the cycle.
Altair's voice continued.
The Krylon were always one step ahead. They grasped what we would do before we did. They had seen it all before, over and over again. And each time, they adapted, grew stronger, while we stayed the same, repeating the same mistakes, fighting the same battles. Yet, there is a way out.
The words hung in the air like a lifeline. Maya stopped in her tracks, her heart pounding.
A way out?
She echoed, eyes narrowing as if willing Altair's voice to continue.
Yes.
Altair said.
However, it requires a sacrifice, one that I could not make, one that you must decide for yourself.
Maya internalized the cold grip of uncertainty settle around her. Sacrifice? What was Altair asking her to do? The answers, it seemed, lay buried in the remaining letters.
How many more of these are there, Remus?
23.
The AI responded.
Each encrypted in a similar fashion. Decryption of the next letter can commence at your command.
Maya's hand rested on the pedestal, her fingers brushing the cool, pulsing surface of the next sheet. Each letter was a key, unlocking more of the truth, but at what cost? Every word brought her deeper into this strange, terrifying reality. And with it, the gnawing fear that she was losing control. Or maybe, just maybe, gaining it for the first time. She pressed down on the second sheet, the glow intensifying beneath her touch. The familiar rush of light filled the chamber again, and her mind was once more assaulted by images. Flashes of a battle she'd never fought but somehow knew. The sky above her split with fire, explosions tearing apart the heavens as Krylon machines descended like metallic angels of death. In this vision, she saw Altair, a man she now understood as a future, or past, version of herself. His face weathered, his eyes hollow with the burden of knowledge, of loss. He fought like her, moved like her, commanded like her. Even so, he had failed. And now, here she stood in his place, picking up the pieces he left behind. The light faded, and Maya's breathing steadied. She had seen enough.
Remus, start decrypting the rest. We're not leaving this place until I know everything.
Understood, Captain.
Remus replied. Maya's mind was already racing ahead, piecing together the fragments of Altair's warnings. Time, she realized, wasn't a straight line. It was a loop, and she was trapped inside it. Her choices, her victories, her defeats, they had all been played out before. The Krylon War was a cycle, repeating endlessly across timelines, and if she couldn't find a way to break it, she would be doomed to relive this war forever.
And that brings us to the end of Chapter 3. Maya's journey is only getting more intense, and the revelations ahead keep you on the edge of your seat. Before we dive into Chapter 4, I just want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in to Sam's Fiction Hub. Your support means the world to me, and I'm so excited to share these stories with you. Remember, Echoes of 24 will be available on December 12th, 2024, in ebook, audiobook, and print. If you're enjoying this sneak peek, be sure to grab the full book and experience the entire story at your own pace. And don't forget to subscribe to Sam's Fiction Hub on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribing helps us grow and ensures you never miss an episode. All right, let's get back to Maya's adventure. Chapter 4 is just ahead.
Chapter 4, Threads of Fate. The next letter was different. Maya was aware of it the moment her fingers touched the smooth surface of the metallic sheet. A chill crawled up her spine, and her vision dimmed for a heartbeat. She pulled her hand back instinctively, but the sheet clung to her skin, its pale blue light growing brighter with each passing second. The room around her appeared to blur, the walls shifting and warping as though the entire facility was breathing in rhythm with the sheet.
Remus,
Maya whispered, her voice caught between awe and terror.
what's happening?
Remus hesitated.
There appears to be an active reaction between your neural patterns and the encrypted data. I am detecting an increase in energy levels within the chamber.
Maya's pulse quickened. She clenched her jaw, forcing herself to hold on to reality, to resist the pull that seemed to reach deeper than before. This was different from the other letters. There was something alive about it, something that felt personal.
Can you stop it?
Negative, Captain. The interaction is beyond my control.
She cursed under her breath and shut her eyes as the light from the sheet flared to blinding intensity. And then, with a snap, like the sound of a cord breaking, the light disappeared, leaving her in total darkness. There was something there with her. The darkness stretched infinitely around her, like the void of space, yet filled with something more. She was aware of the presence of it, a presence that pressed on her chest, made her skin crawl. She tried to speak, but her voice was swallowed by the gravity of silence. Slowly, the entity shifted, taking form, coalescing into shapes she could almost recognize. Then, the voice came.
Maya.
It was never Remus. It wasn't a Krylon. It was the voice of a man, steady, calm, but filled with the deep weariness of someone who had seen the end of everything. Her breath caught in her throat as the shapes in the darkness solidified, and standing before her, cloaked in the flickering light of the universe, was Altair. The visions she had seen of him before had been fragmented, distant, like echoes of another life. But this was real. His eyes met hers, and for a moment, the endless loop of time they shared became one. She saw in his face the same fear she underwent, the same exhaustion, and the same desperate hope.
You're not real.
She whispered, her voice hoarse, no conviction in her words. She perceived things better now. Time wasn't linear. Reality was shifting eternally. Altair stepped forward, the movement as fluid as a ghost passing through a dream. His gaze was intense, his expression unreadable, but his presence carried the burden of 1,000 battles.
I am real,
He said.
but not in the way you understand.
Maya stepped back, her body trembling under the impact of his words. The pressure in the room mounted, thickening the air, and for a moment she had an impression her lungs might collapse under the strain. Still, Altair's eyes held her in place, keeping her grounded in the swirling darkness.
You've experienced it.
He continued, his voice echoing through the chamber.
The significance of time, the threads pulling at your soul. You know now that we are caught in this cycle, this war, forever. Every choice we make, every battle we fight, leads us back to the same end. I've seen it, just as you have.
Maya swallowed hard, her mind racing to catch up with the enormity of what he was saying. It was true. She intuited the strange familiarity from the moment she touched the letters, visions of battles she never fought, memories that weren't her own. But now, standing before Altair, she understood. They were the same. She gritted her teeth, fighting back the anger and fear that threatened to overwhelm her.
So what's the point then?
She asked, her voice trembling.
If we're trapped in this loop, but what am I supposed to do? Keep fighting, keep losing?
Altair's expression softened, a flicker of sadness crossing his features. He stepped closer, his presence filling the space around her.
No, there is another way, a way out.
Her heart skipped a beat. She had heard those words before, in the first letter, but now they carried a new weight, a new urgency.
I failed to break the cycle.
Altair said, his voice heavy with regret.
Yet, you can succeed where I did not. The Krylon have learned to manipulate time, to twist it to their advantage. They've seen our every move before we make it, adjusted their tactics, and perfected their strategy. That's why we lose, again and again.
Maya's brow furrowed.
Then how do we beat them?
Altair's gaze darkened.
By making a choice they can't predict.
She frowned, confusion knotting her thoughts.
What do you mean? I'm one person, one soldier. What could I possibly do that would change all of this?
The letters.
He said, his eyes flashing coldly.
The letters are the key. Each one holds a fragment of the truth, a piece of the puzzle you need to understand Krylon weakness. Even so, more than that, they hold the power to change the course of time itself, to rewrite the past, the future.
Maya's breath hitched.
Change the past? How is that even possible?
Altair's face was etched with sorrow, and his voice grew quieter.
By making the ultimate sacrifice, one that transcends the cycle.
The words sent a shiver down her spine. She didn't have to ask what he meant. The meaning hung between them, thick in the air. Her. She was the key, and if she wanted to break the cycle, to stop the endless loop of war and death, she would have to give up everything. Her life, her existence, everything that made her Maya Locke.
I couldn't do it,
Altair confessed, his voice barely a whisper.
That's why you're here. You must make the choice I could not.
Maya shook her head, her mind reeling. She wanted to scream, to tell him that he was wrong, that there had to be another way. Deep down, she knew the truth. She had a hunch ever since she'd touched the letters, that strange pull towards something greater, something inevitable.
What happens if I don't?
She asked, her voice barely audible. Altair's eyes darkened, and his form began to flicker, as though the connection between them was weakening.
Then the cycle continues. The Krylon win, and we live through this hell again.
Maya clenched her fists, her nails digging into her palms. The weight of Altair's words crushed her, but she couldn't let it end like this. There had to be a way out, something she hadn't thought of yet.
Remus,
She whispered, her voice trembling.
how many letters are left to decrypt?
22, Captain.
22 letters. 22 more pieces of the puzzle. She wasn't ready to give up yet. Not while there was still a chance, however slim, that she could find another way.
Altair,
She said, stepping toward him, her voice firm despite the fear coursing through her veins.
I'm not like you. I'm not going to fail. I'll figure this out. I'll break the cycle without losing myself.
Altair's form flickered again, his edges blurring into the darkness. He didn't respond, but there was something in his eyes, a flicker of hope, or perhaps resignation. And then, just as suddenly as he had appeared, he was gone. The chamber was silent again, the air cold and still. Maya stood alone, her heart pounding in her chest, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts. She looked down at the pedestal, at the remaining letters, their soft glow casting long shadows across the floor. She wasn't Altair. She wouldn't be trapped in the same loop. She would find a way to end this war without sacrificing her existence. She understood the clock was ticking, and with each passing moment, the threads of fate grew tighter around her.
And that wraps up chapters 3 and 4 of Echoes of 24. What an incredible turn of events for Maya. The threads of fate have started pulling tighter, and the choices ahead are as daunting as they are inevitable. Altair's presence and his revelations have changed everything. Can Maya break the cycle where others have failed? Or will she face the same fate as those before? These chapters have left us with so much to think about, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think about the idea of rewriting time itself? Could you make the ultimate sacrifice if it meant changing the course of history? Share your theories and insights in the comments or on social media. I can't wait to discuss this. Remember, Echoes 24 will be available on December 12th, 2024 in ebook, audiobook, and print. Be sure to mark your calendars to experience the full story from start to finish. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe to Sam's Fiction Hub on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribing ensures you won't miss future episodes, and your support helps keep this adventure alive. Thank you for joining as we journey through Maya's story. Until next time, keep imagining, keep exploring, and as always, keep turning the page.